Good morning, everybody. Today I want to ask the question, I am going to ask the question, try to provide a quick answer for it. The question is this: what do we do about false teaching, false doctrine? And I think you know the answer to it, at least in part. The answer is we address it, we confront it, we correct it, right? But I want to take a little bit different twist on it, and I want to address the reality that we may have this idea in our head that we hear false teaching, we hear false doctrine, we address it, we correct it, it's corrected, we move on. But it's not always that way, right? People don't always receive correction. And in fact, sometimes it feels like the people who believe the false things are growing and growing and growing, and there are fewer and fewer who are standing on the truth. It doesn't seem like correction is doing a whole lot. At least that's how it feels sometimes. And I kind of want to address that. So there are lots of things we could talk about to answer the question. There's lots of different parts to the answer to the question, what do we do about false doctrine? But I want to start by talking about that feeling of being overwhelmed. What do we do when it doesn't seem like what we're doing in regard to false teaching is making a difference? And Luther wrote a hymn that I want to read to you as our answer today. I'm just going to read three of the stanzas, and it's verses 1, 2, and 6. O Lord, look down. Luther writes, O Lord, look down from heaven, behold, and let thy pity waken. How few are we within thy fold, thy saints by men forsaken. True faith seems quenched on every hand. Men suffer not thy word to stand. Dark times have us o'ertaken. With fraud which they themselves invent, thy truth they have confounded. Their hearts are not without consent, on thy pure doctrine grounded. While they parade with outward show, they lead the people to and fro, in error's maze astounded. So the first two verses are really talking about that being overwhelmed, being surrounded, right? And then finally, stanza 6, how do we deal with false teaching? We pray. We put this particular burden on God. And that's what Luther does in stanza 6. He says, defend thy truth, O God, and stay this evil generation. And from the error of its way, keep thine own congregation. The wicked everywhere abound, and would thy little flock confound, but thou art our salvation. Defend thy truth, O God, and stay this evil generation. And from the error of its way, keep thine own congregation. The wicked everywhere abound, and would thy little flock confound, but thou art our salvation. That is our hope. We go to God in prayer, first and foremost, especially when we are feeling overwhelmed by the false teaching, when it seems like we are not gaining any ground by rebuking or correcting. We pray to the Lord of the church. I also just want to point out one little part of stanza 2 that I love, and it may be a bit of a digression, but I love it. It says, and I read it terrible too. Let me read the first part of stanza 2 again. It says, with fraud which they themselves invent, thy truth they have confounded. Their hearts are not with one consent on thy pure doctrine grounded. I love that. That goes so well. You can kind of see it up here with our logo and the symbol for Concord. The hearts are not with one consent on thy pure doctrine grounded. That's always our goal, right? That our hearts would be united of one consent, but not just united on pure doctrine, right? United on pure doctrine. So you have the harp, you have harmony, and at the center of it, you have the Lutheran confessions, right? But you have the cross at the very, very center of it. And that's our goal. And that's why we don't give up. We continue to correct what is false. Let the chips fall where they may, with people's souls in mind. We're not just trying to defend doctrine. We're trying to correct for the sake of people's salvation, right? And ultimately, even in those moments, especially in those moments when we feel overwhelmed, we take that burden and we give it to the Lord, because this is his church, right? And he will keep his congregation. He will never stop being our salvation. So we have nothing to fear. We keep at it, right? God bless you all. God bless your week.